Response video to Zombie Picture Show, who I appreciate. He did make a response video to the free will video on Blogger Dome, but he's not really obeying the rules, which sort of sucks. I mean, either make a 5-minute video or you respond to the exact points made in somebody's video by playing their video. That's kind of the rules. But anyway, we'll play along because, well, we got nothing else but ourselves to play with so far. So, alright, so he's going to use his own time coding. He's stating, okay, my first argument is there's no such thing as this word free. It just breaks the whole argument right from the start. And I explain why it does in the video. But anyway, he's going to counter-argue.
Okay, that's reasonable. My response to that would be that back in the age of antiquity, one had to accept free will if there was to be any value in the study of ethics, normative ethics, virtue ethics, meta-ethics.
I think this is a totally wrong premise. I mean, even if you accepted complete determinism in the absence of any free will, there's absolutely every indication that you need to have conversations about ethics, that communication is how you exchange ideas and how you seed or fertilize the soil of creation. That, yes, doing it from your own static perspective is almost impossible. You need to feed the machine. You need value in before you can have value out. So there has to be conversation. There has to be the communication. There has to be storing information and reading information and compiling information, and then we do it both inside of our own little processor. We try to come up with something new, but sometimes just throwing it at somebody else, mixing it up a little bit, then throwing it back at the other person, have them mix it up a little bit. That interaction is vital to consolidation, to refinement. It's part of the refining process. So it may all be deterministic, but it's a necessary component of development. That's how you develop. That's how you progress, is sharing information and building upon each other's perspective. It's a necessary part of competent thinking, is sharing ideas. It's really hard to do it as an island, to learn it all on your own, to think it all on your own.
If one is but a deterministic being and only responds to stimuli, then there is no reason to study ethics. I mean, there's no reason to study the human condition at all.
Well, like I said, it's just nonsense. Most of my comprehension of ethics is something I've extracted from somebody else's principles, or principles I've heard. You read the Declaration of Independence and you acquire some understanding of social ethics and dynamics, and you can read some psychology books and understand how people's brains are working a little bit, and then understand what motivates them. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a fundamental part of refining, of creating something precise and engineering something well, is this process of sharing information. Very few brilliant ideas come out of just one brain. They have to be fed.
But since there's a study of this and there's a study of that, this implies a level of freedom. And free describes a circumstance of freedom.
Yeah, well, whatever. That's just silly, right? When I say there's no free, then there is no freedom, okay? You can only be unrestrained. So you're taking away a restraint to have this thing called freedom. But you can never have an absolute freedom. And there are definite and obvious restraints that control our choice-making, our character. It's completely dependent on what movies you've seen or what lessons you learned from your parents or your life experience. It's completely decided by those factors. So there is no freedom from the influences that created what you call you, which there is no you either, but we'll get to that.
Okay. At about 19 seconds to 26 seconds, free doesn't mean anything. It's a word describing a negative, a wide-spaced circumstance, unrestraining without disability. Okay? I say to that, to say that the word has no meaning, it has no relevance, it doesn't mean anything. Well, which one is it?
Well, clearly it just means you can only go from a restrained state to a less restrained state and call it freedom. There's no absolute freedom. So you're just talking about a migration from something that confines you or cripples you or stops you to something that's out of your way. An impediment is removed. That's freedom. Impediments removed. Now, there is no such element of impediment removal in the sense of like intelligence can allow you to access things that you wouldn't know exist without the intelligence, like knowledge of art or knowledge of music or knowledge of some skill like bricklaying. It now removes the impediment of ignorance. So you could call ignorance an impediment. It limits you. Being ignorant, being incapable, being incompetent, being unlearned, okay, is an impediment to you being able to do something. So you learn how to play the violin. Well, now you're able to play the violin. You're free to play the violin. But you're not free to choose to play the violin because the decision to play the violin is going to be made by your psychology. It's going to be made by your brain, and you will not have anything to do with that choice. You doesn't exist. You as a watcher. You as a doer. Brain is doing.
If it's not relevant, it means that it once was relevant in the age of antiquity. A word describing, for example...
Yeah, well, this isn't the point. The point was, I'm just saying it's an old word that was applied ignorantly. The word is not an accurate description of what's going on, so it's not a very useful word. What there is removal of impediments, okay, but there is not anything called free.
Circumstance. The why-space circumstance. A why-space circumstance is something to add to. Yes, the word means independent to choose. Therefore, the word that's
independent to choose. Again, like I said, this choose word is going to be a big problem because you're not going to be making any of these choices in anything you call your consciousness. All right, it's going to be made by your subconscious, and so what you will do, okay, you won't choose to do it. Your brain is going to just do it. It's going to decide to do it. But there won't be anything called a choice. There'll just be a do. You either do or you don't do, period.
Circumstance becomes enabled. It is no longer disabled. 30 seconds to 38 seconds in, will needs to be enabled by something. Okay. Yes, it is enabled by choice, the ability to choose from.
Enabled by choice. You can't have the choice without the acquisition of the knowledge. And the option of choice is created by you being given the capacity, the things that you will be choosing from. But you won't be choosing. Your subconscious brain will decide, but there won't be anything that you can call a choice. There won't be anything called a roll of the dice or some sort of decision-making in any kind of explicit sense. It's just going to be an inevitable process, not a possible process, not a maybe process. It's going to be an inevitable process. There will be a win. There's no variables that are unresolved inside of your brain. Your subconscious is set. It's got certain gear work on it, and the other gears have certain gears on them, and when those gears come together, they will mesh in a certain way, and that's the only way they can mesh. And that's just the way it is. They're set objects. They're going to hit each other at certain angles, and they're going to bounce off of each other at certain angles, and you can't call that a choice. It's going to be inevitable.
Coke, Pepsi, Shasta Orange, Sprite, Dr. Pepper, from say 7-Eleven implies a degree of free will on the basic human level. That is common fucking sense. And by the way, when you decide to get up in the morning, it implies a level of...
Again, implying doesn't mean anything to me, okay? We're talking about what we can describe as real things, not implied things, not vague notions of, not all this crap. So again, you're using a when you. What do you mean by when I? Do you mean when my brain decides to get up? When my brain decides it's okay, hit the alarm for the second time and that's it. Or it makes some other rule. That somehow I made the rule. That I chose to make the rule that, okay, I'll sleep for 5 more minutes and then wake up. That I somehow chose to do that. That I did it. No, we know that these are just programs running in your head. And there's programs that are dominant in the hierarchy and and programs that are recessive in the hierarchy, and they change position at different circumstances with different moods. You'll be more likely to do one thing than another thing because of your own personal disposition, or whether you have a broken leg, it'll change how you'll make decisions. I mean, the gear work is the gear work. You're not going to make a choice. A decision will be made based on the circumstances, and it's inevitable and it's explicit. And there is no choose. I choose? No. Brain decides.
Sort of independent, voluntary choice.
Yeah, voluntary by what part of me? Who volunteers to choose? I sit there, the choices are presented in front of me, and then I choose? I is what? Some little guy inside my head who chooses? Little Gary, little mini Gary inside of me chooses? No, programs choose. I will inevitably see that this blue thing is better than that brown thing because I have been programmed to like blue better than I like brown, and I like tall rather than the short, or I like smelling good rather than smelling bad, or whatever the thing is. I have a program that's going to weight the circumstance. It has the scales already built inside of me. And when the shit comes in and falls on those scales, they're going to just tip, and that's just going to be the way it is. There isn't going to be any way to choose your way around that crap. The programs are going to dictate what's going to take place.
What is involuntary, of course, is the beating of our hearts, the grasp air of our lungs.
Yeah, well, I'm telling you, all the other stuff is also just as untouchable by anything called choice, okay? Once you learn how to play the violin, you can't forget, on purpose. I mean, once you understand a language, you understand some languages, you can't just pretend when you hear somebody speaking French that you don't know what they mean. You do know what they mean because you've learned how to speak French. You've been enabled by that information. You don't have a choice anymore. You're going to hear the words and you're going to understand what they mean. You can't do anything about that. That's just the way it is. You're changed by the information you retain, by the experiences you experience. Every single one of them, dents you in a specific way. And when it comes time for you to bounce off of stuff, those dents are going to mean something.
That is involuntary. But when we decide to get up in the morning, that is voluntary.
Voluntary to who? Who has the voluntary part? Who's playing Mr. Voluntary in there? I don't see any voluntary. There's going to be a decision made. My brain will sit there, and the programs will fight with each other, and eventually one of them will win. It just will. One of them will rise to the surface and say, "Okay, go back to bed, call in sick, or get off your ass and get to work." One of those is going to rise up and say, "This is what I'm going to do," and I don't have any choice in the matter. I'm just going to sit there and watch and say, "Oh fuck, I wish the other guy won."
It's an independent choice.
Independent of what? Again, knowledge of the fact that I'm going to get fired. You have that knowledge. That knowledge rises up inside of you and says, "Well, you're going to get fired if you don't go to work, so you got to get the fuck up." And it just says, "Get up, fucker," because that wins. You can't argue with "you're going to get fired." There's no counter argument to "you're going to get fired," so fuck you, get up. Sometimes it's that simple, and sometimes it's all kind of more vague. The brain bounces the ball back and forth a while before it decides who wins. But somebody's going to win, and who's going to win is going to be a deterministic product of your character that was built through your lifespan.
So it's a free will choice.
Free from what? Free from who your parents were? Free from what TV shows you watched? Free from what girlfriend you had when you were 16? Free from the time you fell down in the street and the guy helped you out and it made you appreciate the fact that other people don't suck? Free from, I don't know, all the other crap that happened in your life where you learned a lesson from it, and now those lessons will be applied when it's time to make a decision. Those lessons are going to basically make the decision, aren't they? I think you know they are. I can't do certain things because of what I know, right? I can't hurt an animal maliciously or for my own personal satisfaction. If I have some option, I won't do it because something inside my head is going to say, don't do that, shithead. I'm not going to have a choice about it. My understanding is going to make it impossible for certain things to happen. My character is changed, and I will not be able to do certain things because my brain will say, that's wrong.
From 39 seconds to a minute in, everything is confined by limitations. Nothing can exist outside of them. Everything is confined by circumstance. Yeah, we have experience and attitudes that don't make any sense unless we didn't have free will. Are you?
Don't make any sense unless we have free will. Well, again, free from what? All of our life experience? No, you can't be free from these things. These things will be the thing that dictate what you will do. There is no freedom. There is no you. There's no free. These are just idiotic concepts. They don't exist. There's no active you. You are a witness to what brain does.
Not free to go to a party and choose to drink or not to drink, or to go to this party or not to go. There's a certain, and by the way, there's a certain level of indeterminacy. There's a level of uncertainty in nature that brings about
You can't prove that. Again, there's no random either. There's no uncertainty. It's a deterministic universe. I know you're playing devil's advocate. I don't know how much of this is real devil advocate. I don't know how much of this is you're just playing around. But I'll argue it as if it's, well, I can't make the distinction, so I'll just argue it as it comes. But no, it's deterministic. Okay, you've got to learn how to make a cake before you can make a cake.
Determined actions in nature that escapes logic, that even in our four forces of nature cannot grasp. There's a level of indeterminacy.
Well, you'd have to prove that one to me, okay? Show me an indeterminate event. You ain't going to be able to do that.
Even when it comes to us.
Says you.
At 39 seconds to 1 minute in, everything is confined by limitations. Just, I said that. Yeah, it's chicken scratch, sorry. At about 1 minute and 43 seconds since you put it to your head and say, can this brain make something up? Well, great question. I do agree that we are a victim of circumstance. Our circumstance is, of course, brought by our family, our culture, schools, friends, media, and of course.
Yeah, well, I'm going to use the word fertilizer. That's where I'll use the word fertilizer. Okay, you can't grow anything without the fertilizer, and we're fertilized by life experience. That creates the substrate, and in that substrate, stuff can fly out of it. Okay, it can reform. Okay, it can pull the minerals and the valuables out of that fertilizer and create a structure that's new and different than the fertilizer you started with. Your brain can rearrange the matter, but it's going to rearrange it in a precisely mechanical process. It's going to run gears. The gears are going to grind stuff up, and there's going to be new gears created, and some of those we could communicate to each other. It's going to create byproduct that might be these words, just broken pieces of crap that my brain ground up. And that's what it can create. It can create personality and sentence structure and verbiage. It can create all that crap, but it's not really creating it. It's generating it. It's making it, and it's making it by a recipe decided by my whole life history. That's the recipe. That built the oven, that built the mix, that built the bowl, that built everything. It stirred it all up, and when the cake flew out, it was already destined to be a cake.
Because that shapes who we actually are as a whole. But you have the ability to choose freely to design a new, for example, if you're a painter, if that is your profession, if you're a painter, you have sort of the capacity, capability to...
Capability, okay, is different than choosing. So, yeah, of course, that's exactly my point. You are made capable of doing something. You are given good fertilizer, and with that good fertilizer, you might create, good stuff to be flying out to other people.
You create something new from your brain, say a color, that is not seen yet. But you have the choice to do that.
Well, again, there's no choice involved. It's going to happen, and it's going to be inevitable, and it's going to be a byproduct of the gears gearing. It's all the gear work.
To choose or not to choose. At about...
Again, there's no you. Go find your you. Go show me one of these you things. You just don't have one. All you have is dominant programs and, dominant and recessive. We're back to genes again. But that's what you got inside of you, is dominant and recessive programs, hierarchy of programs. And depending on the circumstance of the moment, one of those programs will be in charge.
2 minutes and 14 seconds to 2 minutes and 19 seconds in. The word free doesn't exist, and will is broken, but the word free is totally useless. Okay, even in a deterministic occurrence, that is nature, there's a degree of action on the basic level of physical existence. And since we still haven't discovered all physical deterministic factors in the world, in nature, outside the world.
Well, we don't have to do all that stuff. All we have to do is find the aberrant, and all I'm saying to you is that you're not going to find the undetermined action. So the word free is useless. Okay? It's a cause and effect world. There's cause and effect. Cause and effect doesn't have any room for free in it. There's just no free in cause and effect. It's hostile to the concept of free. Cause and effect says, nope, you ain't free.
By the universe. Therefore, our will is free. And free will has the basics of human acts, which have moral worth that people somehow, when we choose.
Well, again, there just isn't there. Just again, consider the fact that, let's say I built, you can't have character without building character. These kind of terms we use, to build character building. Well, why is it necessary to build character? Well, that's because you have to build it to have it. You can't have it without having the structure. You got to build the structure for the structure to produce a consequence or a result. For there to be an effect, you have to have the cause, and the cause is the effect of changing your character.
Freely, there's a moral worth to them. At 2 minutes and 22 seconds in, give me a rational definition of the word free. Okay, I'll try. A rational definition of the word free, it's the capacity to choose rationally from various alternatives.
Choose rationally. So rationally is already a confinement that doesn't have anything to do with freedom. And your choices obviously aren't freely acquired, right? So you can't just freely choose to play the violin. You first have to learn how to play the violin. You can't freely choose to be dominated by some sort of agenda, whether you're hungry or you're horny or you're some other, that disposition, you're not going to be able to choose your disposition. The disposition is just going to kind of fall on you. So there's no element of freedom in there.
That is a rational definition. The capacity to choose rationally from various...
Well, again, rationally is a huge confinement. Rationally is hugely confining. It's not free, it's not liberating, it's confining.
Alternatives. At about 2 minutes and 37 seconds to about 2 minutes and 43 seconds, you said your brain will react, but it will not choose. There is no you, you're just a witness. Okay, take this real world, for example. If we choose to kill someone out of our own will.
If my brain, decides that killing somebody is the thing to do, and it moves me in that direction, that's my rephrasing of that, yeah.
The action that we have taken is indeed free. Since that is the case, and if it was not the case, then our judicial system wouldn't make sense.
Again, this argument has been dealt with and dealt with and dealt with. It depends on what you think the judicial system is there for. If you think it's there just to punish people for the sake of it, just to beat them up for no good reason, revenge, well then, yeah, that's not going to work. Because, yeah, they couldn't help it. But if you think it's there to create deterrence and maybe reclamation, Well, then this is how you reclamate somebody. You sit there and punish them so they can have some time to think about the naughtiness of their behavior. And you punish them so people who watch that say, hey, I just learned something that changed my gears. They're telling me I don't want to murder somebody because I'll end up like him with a steel rod up my ass. Yeah, see, so punishment is totally effective as a social instrument. You're not punishing them for nothing. You're punishing them because they're broken. Now, you have to teach the other people not to do something, so if you have to punish... Damn, batteries went low on me. Anyway, okay. Yeah, well, there's plenty of use for deterrence and reclamation. Those two things can take place through punishment.
The legal system or legal judgment will not make any sense if human beings didn't have a level of freedom to choose from. Case in point, the prison.
No, like I said, it's not a case in point. This has already been argued. I'm amazed that you're doing this. This must be part of your devil advocate thing or something, because, yeah, I'm so sick of making this. I made this argument about 25 times now. I mean, damn. Deterrence works. It's an effective changer of behavior. Okay, if there was no penalty for crimes, if I didn't think my life would be harmed if I committed the crime, then I'd be committing crimes all over the fucking place.
Those prisoners are there because they chose poorly. Yeah, granted.
Exactly, they're broken. So, yeah, we can still call them broken. I mean, a rabid dog isn't rabid on purpose. It's not being bad for no reason, like it just felt like being bad. No, but you still shoot it in the fucking head. I mean, it's a victim, but you still acknowledge it.
But they chose poorly, so we sort of make them pay for their actions.
Well, again, you're saying we make them pay. That really shouldn't be the point. If we're just doing it to make them pay, that would be stupid, because they can't pay. They can't pay back their victims, so there's no point in that. What we're doing it for is punishment and reclamation. Punishment for the purpose of scaring straight the other folk. Keeping the other folk honest by giving them an example of what happens to the dishonest.
Or free actions that they took. At about 2 minutes, 45 seconds to about 2 minutes and 54 seconds.
Well, like I said, there was no free action. They did a calculation in their brain, and because of the way the gear work was bent in their brain, they were thinking they were going to be lucky, or they were thinking something else, and it was a miscalculation.
Your first contention is that the word free is useless. It's really not. The word has an effect on us. The final analysis of the word means that we are able to choose independently. Right or wrong, we are still able to choose independently.
Well, whatever. You keep saying there's an independent. Independent from what? Our moral character? Our learned experience? No, there's no such thing as separating it from that, so it's not free. The word free is just not an accurate word. It's not a valuable word. It's not a constructive word. It's a very unconstructive, unproductive word that breaks communication. It doesn't enhance communication. It breaks communication because it's basically a lie. The universe isn't made of free. It's made of things that confine and inhibit and restrain. All the forces do that in the universe. They're all restraints on liberty.
There's this innate feeling of freedom in all of us.
Well, whether you have a feeling of it, that's your problem. I'm just saying, I think that's just a contrivance. I have no innate feeling of freedom. I'm completely understand that what I will do is what I will do, and it's going to be because my brain did it, but I don't have anything to do with it.
Your second the same thing your second contention will be that your illusion, second contention, chicken scratch. Your second contention is that will is just your illusion of your brain. Brain is making choices subconsciously. Okay. Yeah, we could read, for example, Free Will by Sam Harris, the neuroscientist, and he says that we indeed have no free will, and we choose to believe this, and we choose to believe that we, in fact, are able to say, you know what, we killed someone, but sorry, my brain made me do it. And yeah, see how far that gets.
That's the truth. Yeah, that's exactly how it works. Your brain makes you do it. And if you do something stupid, there's no reason why you shouldn't pay for it. There's no reason why you shouldn't be figured to be broken. And if we decide to squish you like a bug, that should be all right. And if we decide that, well, maybe we can fix him, then we'll put a screwdriver in his ass and see if that does anything for him. But all those options would still be open because we're not saying anything other than you're dysfunctional. This is what's required from you to function in society. Now, if you can't meet these standards, you can't do these 10 little commandments, so to speak, well then fuck you, you don't get to play. That's the rule of playing, is that you have to follow the rules of playing. If you can't follow the rules, fuck you, you can't play.
Whether you are responding to stimuli or not, you still chose to do it. You're analytical.
You, choose. No. That doesn't happen. Okay, it's just not. Brain, do. My brain just did this. It just invented this little say it 3 times thing. I didn't have anything to do with it. It just came the fuck out. I didn't choose it. It chose me. Yeah, totally.
So the mind chose it. Yes, your frontal lobe responded to the action. Your parietal lobe chose to act on it, and your temporal lobe just witnessed it, responded to stimuli. Still, your frontal lobe chose to act on it.
Well, again, you can keep using the word choose, and there's just no evidence of anything called a choice. There's nothing to make the choice. The way the system works is it's mechanical. The things fit together, they don't fit together. It goes or it doesn't go. But there's nothing in there that can say, I'm choosing. There's no chooser. There's brain and function. Period. No choosing.
Which means we are in fact free agencies in our decisions.
Yeah, well, again, we're not free agencies, but I'm going to answer that one. But anyway, no, this isn't. No. No, there's no free. There's not even an agent. That's even a pretty messy word.
So at about 3 minutes and 51 seconds, so about 4 minutes and 4 seconds, the witness couldn't possibly control it because you don't have any idea where it's coming from. You cannot control what you cannot see.
Yeah, no, I just thought of another way to metaphor this. It's kind of like an ant colony, right? And ant colonies do things. They build a mound, they move, they do things. Well, they're not doing it because they choose to do it. The ant colony doesn't choose. It's just the ants go that way. Okay, it's the ants making it happen, not the colony.
Okay. I do agree we cannot control what we see, but we can rationalize it. We can think for a second.
We can. You, me, I. None of these things exist. There are programs in your brain, prioritized programs, a hierarchy of programs. They do. You do not do anything. You watch what they do. You see them do it and go, hey, he just did a pretty good job there. Way to go, Gary.
What we've seen. I mean, if human beings were led by, for example, the limbic fucking area, the limbic system, which makes us emotional, and how we respond to emotions, which make our decisions really bad.
Yeah, that's like the different ants having different functions, and depending on what the different ants' functions are doing, will decide where the colony goes. I mean, if the bridge-making ants decide to make a bridge, well, then the rest of the ants will say, hey, there's a bridge, let's cross it. That's just the way it's going to happen. They're going to chain react. There's going to be a cause and effect chain. One thing will do one thing, and then the other thing will do the other thing, and then that thing will do this thing, and they're all going to interact with each other, and that's happening inside our brain. Cause and effect, bouncy, and then it pops out here. That's it.
Well, we will be able, if it wasn't for our limbic system, we will be able to choose more rationally, more independently.
No, that's just a matter of priorities. Again, I'm going to argue that your limbic system can give your emotional priority to discipline. So you can be a disciplined monk and do incredibly disciplined things that are totally uncomfortable and against your intuitive senses. But you'll do it because you're so in love with the discipline, so in love with the idea. The same is true for your ideology or philosophy. You can be nailed to it emotionally as hard as anything else you're emotionally nailed to. You can grow into your emotional self. Your philosophy can be who you are, and vice versa.
But we still choose independently because of the frontal lobe.
Well, again, I'm not going to argue about the frontal lobe isn't making any choices either. It's just following where the bouncing's going. Bounce, bounce, bounce. And it comes out here.
At about 4 minutes and 43 seconds, about 4 minutes and 48 seconds, you threw consciousness. And the hard problem with consciousness doesn't really need to be with will and free will and determinism. It really doesn't. And I have no idea.
Well, I think it does, just because the hard problem of consciousness is about the fact that you wouldn't need this feeling gooey space, okay, theoretically. Theoretically, you could have prime directives. You could have these programs running, and they would have just a prime directive, just a statement inside that says, don't let hand get burnt, okay, and it's just a prime directive, and it just says, it just stops you from getting your hand burnt as if you knew what pain and suffering was, except you never feel anything. But it gives you the same kind of idea of don't do that because that's intrinsically negative. And so that would be a weird, it's the fact of that this is biology, that it is a bag of mush and wet shit, that it's not that digital and precise. But theoretically it could be that programmed. The programming could be that pure, and that would give us a better insight into it. We'd see it better if we didn't have this gooey feeling thing happening. The gooey feeling thing gives us a perception that somehow this is ambiguous or wavy or... No. The gooey feeling is being created by cause and effect. It's rock-solid, deterministic, digital stuff, even though it feels really analog.
To do that on there, but you said the consciousness is not an active player. It's a witness. It's a screen in which everything else is thrown.
The you. That's what the you is. The we, the I. All this stuff that you're saying is making choices. No. All that stuff is tied in a chair in the theater, and it's just watching the pageant.
Yes. Again, we respond to outside sources. We respond to stimuli that the four forces of nature bring to us.
Yeah, well, that's the whole point, though, right? Is the eyes convert, the ears convert, the senses convert it into something it projects on the screen, and then the brain adds more shit to the screen. It just keeps adding some, it filters in some emotional colors, just like this is colored and filtered. And it filters in some intellectual perceptions and some noticed associations. Not complicated. I mean, I did sort of, you're bald, and so I was thinking, well, he is sort of a dickhead. Because he's kind of, bald head.
But we still choose.
I mean, these are just thoughts, right? That's all everything is. It's just associations. If I don't have a previous history with certain associations, I wouldn't see certain things. I wouldn't see certain relationships. I mean, Christmas lights. I got some up my ceiling over there. You don't notice that shit unless you notice that shit because you have something that you can connect to it. Cause and effect.
To witness. The fact that we are here talking means that we are the authors of our own thoughts and freaking actions.
We are the authors of our own thoughts. I mean, you know how crazy-ass stupid that is? I mean, come on, you got to do better than that. I mean, even if you're being devil advocate, author them out of what? Where did I author them?
Are free to choose that. We're free to choose anything we just...
Let me see you do it, okay? I don't think you can possibly make a free choice. You can't. You just can't.
Decide to choose. if free will is merely an illusion brought to you by neurobiology, as for example, as if our sort of free will is just an illusion, just by
No, it's a stupid combination of words. Will just means whatever program won, and you call that your will. So will just means whatever you ended up doing. Okay? And free is just crap.
the neuroscience that we have, as i.e. responding to stimuli, then our will, our choices, will ultimately destroy our objective experience.
I don't even know what that means. Our choices will destroy our objective experience. Sorry, no fail. No comprendo.
5 minutes. And I love that. I love the whole aspect of will our society crumble if free will is proven wrong. I don't think so. I mean, religious fucknuts might break down and throw themselves off a fucking cliff, and this I would love to see. Because they will...
Well, aren't they already in that circumstance already? I mean, they're assuming that God has some kind of free will. Free from what? You mean he just freely thought up the idea, oh, I think I'll make some humans? I mean, how can you possibly have any free will? How can you possibly want something out of nowhere? It doesn't make any sense. So even God can't be free of some sort of psychological dependency, some sort of motivational feeling or thought processor. His thoughts just pop into his head for no reason whatsoever. I mean, you know, it sort of does explain sex, but I mean, you know, whatever.
Find out that none of this means anything. But for the most part, I think rational people will improve this society, our society. But ultimately, since...
Yeah, well, rational people, it's just really more like just using the word rational. Rational filtering can improve efficiency, mindset, behavior. You can do all of those things, can. Will it in the human race? I don't know. They don't seem too viral on the intelligence virus. You know, that virus, they seem to be immune to the intelligence virus.
Most people are led by the limbic system or are sort of influenced by the limbic system. Then, of course...
No, most people have dumbass words like free stuck in their head. Until they get those stupid, idiotic, moronic, old, crappy words out of their head, they're not going to go anywhere. They have idiotic notions of choice and will and other kinds of bullshit that completely breaks down their capacity to understand what exactly is happening inside their psychology. And once they do that, then they'll also be able to clearly see, get rid of that bullshit language and understand the deterministic nature, and then you'll be even more aware of the fact of how you're just being completely owned by your psychology, by, you know, what makes your dick hard and other things, and you're just completely owned by these arbitrary and erroneous standards of value, and that are completely corrupt and stupid. So yeah, everything becomes really quite obvious. Get rid of a few bad words, and you can start to think.
Everything that in China, for example, they have words for, they will completely be useless because human beings tend to repeat the mistakes that their ancestors made.
Exactly my point. It's a mistake. So that's all we got to do is concede it's a mistake. The word freedom is a mistake.
Fucked up choices. If you listen to your limbic system, you'll make some pretty fucked up choices. Think more rationally about what you're going to do and then choose from the choices that you have. That implies a level of freedom to choose some rational choices.
Yeah, whatever. No chooser, and the choice, the decision will be made by brain, programmed by experience. There will not be a choice. There'll be a decision.
Yeah, anyway, that's all I have. Thank you all for watching. Means a lot.
Input-output device. That's what we are. We're an input-output device. Nothing else going on here. No magic. No free pudding. Just garbage in, garbage out. And such.